hunting. It's an avid hobby of mine and runs in the family. My favorite animals to catch are deer and boars, as they are quite a challenge to catch, and I love a challenge. As well as general hunting, camping in the woods is therapeutic for me, as you're in nature's natural habitat, which can be greatly enjoyed when by yourself. Accompanying this are the type of people you meet while hiking. I've met people who shared their food and campfire with me, and some even hiked with me in the gorgeous wilderness we call the woods. But most of the time it's your animal friends who accompany you while walking and camping. I wish this story was about all of the above, but things took a plummet for the worst, and this is my story. I had recently completed an assignment which I would like to describe as long-winded and quite boring. Due to this, I decided to take a 5-day hike across a vast stretch of woods for hunting. As a hunting enthusiast, I decided to hunt for some deer and possibly some boars if I came across any. So I prepped up my tranquilizer and hunting equipment as well as my pop-up tent and some snacks high in energy and took the 3.5-hour drive to my destination. I was stoked and excited as I loved camping and hunting, as I could unwind around nature and overall enjoy the set atmosphere the woods provided. After what seemed like days behind the wheel, I arrived at what looked like an abandoned parking lot at 3:30 in the afternoon, as the ranger's office looked as if it hadn't been occupied for years. But I brushed it off, parked, and began my hike. The place gave me a very uneasy vibe, as if the woods beyond the ranger's office was sinister in a way. I can't really describe what gave me this uneasiness, but I honestly chalked it up to the place looking abandoned and creepy. Either way, I headed out onto the path and began scouting the area for animals. I've got to be honest, this set of woods was exquisite. The sun was shining through the trees and the animals were up and active, and I came across a few deer, but no boars, unfortunately. Fast forward to 8:30 p.m. It was uneventful, to be honest, and it was getting pretty dark and gloomy. Now I need to add that I'm a quite paranoid guy, as I was involved in a burglary at the age of 15, and all was okay in the end, but that paranoia of something or someone lurking in the shadows stays with me in the back of my mind when I'm out alone at night. Anyway, I whipped up a fire, cooked up some marshmallows, and warmed up some beans, and ate away, minding my own business. After this, I decided to go for a late-night hunt, as I did a 2-week course on how to hunt prey in the woods when it's dark, and I think it really paid off. 15 minutes later, I put the fire out as I was prepared to go on a late-night hunt, but then my blood ran as cold as ice, and my hands started to shake when I saw a silhouette of a person about 100 yards away from me. It was unexpected, so I internally freaked out. I also noticed a small pocket knife in their left hand, and it looked like they were crouching and stalking something, as they had their knife at the ready. I believe it was a man about 6 feet tall, and his back was facing me, so I believed that he didn't notice I was there, which I took as a godsend. However, it could just be another hunter like myself. After crapping bricks while watching this man for 5 minutes, he disappeared into the dark night, and I got over it pretty quickly, as I thought he was a fellow hunter like myself. I honestly wished that that was the case. Fast forward 1 hour, and it's around 9:45 p.m. and I'm feeling confident enough to go back out into the black wilderness and catch a deer or two, or maybe even a boar. I pinpointed where my tent was with the map and went on my way with my hunting equipment. 10 minutes later, I'm practically in no man's land, as everywhere around me was pitch black, but I knew what I was doing. I was stalking a deer which hadn't noticed me. I grabbed my tranquilizer and placed the deer in my sights. That was when I heard twigs snap. My eyes darted, my legs went into jelly mode, and I jerked my neck to the source of the noise. What the? A silhouette appeared out of the tree to the left of me, about 50 yards away, and just watched me. Not the deer, but me. The deer was long gone now, so it was just me and an unwanted guest. His size concluded to me that he was the same guy as before, 6 feet, around 200 pounds. He stared at me, and I stared back, my body still as stone, but my sudden outburst of adrenaline was making me shake. I couldn't see his face. It was too dark. Wait, was he a late-night human butcher? Am I not going to see daylight again? I just about choked out. Who's there? I tried to say it in the calmest voice I could do, but fear was evident when I asked the question. The man raised the hand with the pocket knife and pointed his index finger towards me. That was it. I bolted it north while mildly tripping up and hitting my head off tree branches. Twigs snapped rapidly behind me as this crazed guy was chasing me. I looked back once and saw his vacant right hand brushing tree branches to the side of him. His knife gripped tightly in his left hand. I then realized that during it all, I dropped my tranquilizer. Screw that. I can buy another one. I know I should have shot the guy, but it's amazing what one can forget when in a horrific situation, even if it's a gun. I wasn't going back for it. A ton of thoughts were going through my mind while I was running. Why me? What does he want? Money? My food? What could it be? That was when I honestly thought I pissed myself, as he then said in a rapid tone, "Isn't this fun?" He then had the audacity to start laughing in a patronizing way, and I couldn't take it anymore. I sped up, and I'll tell you now, it's amazing what the human body can do when adrenaline and natural instinct takes over. I never ran so fast in my life. I made a hard right, dived into some bushes nearby quietly, and eventually lost the guy. I heard his footsteps go the opposite way, and it turns out that I went in a huge circle, as I could see my tent only 50 yards from me now. I was completely shaking, and tears were starting to form, but I had to stay strong. I just had to. What would my father do in this situation? I turned my ears into the darkness and heard nothing, and I saw nothing. I was not going to turn on my phone light, as I'd be an open target. I checked my watch, and it was now 10:30. I've been in the tent for 10 minutes now. I sat still in my tent, listening to every small noise I could hear in the woods. Suddenly, snap. I held in my gasp as I heard a twig snap behind the tent, and with that accompanied a low and sinister voice. "You think you could run? I win." With that, my tent was being sliced open and the crazed maniac popped his head in. He was actually licking his lips and his wide eyes locked with my eyes. "You lose," he screams as he pulls the knife out. Fighting, which is not my strong point, but the gym made me a pretty strong guy. So as he tried to stab me, I grabbed both his arms and fended him off from plunging a blade into my torso. I tried to disarm him, and he laughed during the process. I thought he was trying to intimidate me. However, I was ready to kill. Not a deer, not a boar, but a human. I restrained his left wrist, but his knife was inches away from going into my foot, so I stepped onto his right hand, pulled back on his left wrist, then snap. His left wrist snapped, and he let out a blood-curdling scream. I had the upper hand and took advantage of this. I got the knife from his distorted, shattered hand and gave him a taste of his own medicine. I sunk the knife into his right hand, and he screamed. I laid a few punches, and I think I broke his nose, but I had no regrets. I grabbed my arm in pain as he made me bend it in an awkward position when he was on top of me when he first ripped the tent open. But I honestly couldn't care about my injuries. He tried to kick me, but I punched him in the face until he was unconscious. I checked my phone, and I had no phone service. I picked up this crazed man into a fireman's lift, and I remembered my way to the ranger's office as it was exactly west from my tent. After an hour of struggling with a killer on my shoulders out cold, I found the ranger's station, and to my surprise, a young man around 20 was there. I collapsed to my knees as I explained the situation. As it turns out, the guy slashed my left bicep, but the adrenaline numbed out the pain. So when it wore off, I suddenly felt the pain and noticed the laceration. The ranger called for backup, and they eventually arrived. Screw my belongings, I was not going to go back out there to retrieve them. The ranger offered to drive me to the nearest hospital in my car, and I did. The Night Stalker was taken away, but was semi-conscious. The next day, I woke up in a hospital bed to an officer, and what he said next was burned into my memory, never to be erased. When I first saw the killer, his back was towards me, knife in his left hand, and was crouching as I mentioned earlier. It turns out that he was stalking another hiker who he brutally murdered and mutilated at the scene. They found chloroform at the scene, hence me not hearing any screams or cries for help. I vowed from there to never go hunting again by myself. The next time I went hunting was a half a year after this incident with 4 of my friends, and although the woods has a beautiful atmosphere and vibe, never judge a book by its cover, as the tables can turn within the blink of an eye. For all of you going camping and hunting, stay safe, and remember, don't think that these things can't happen to you.